Hey guys, Tina here, and welcome to my February wrap up. In the last month, I managed to read 7 books, which is really great. I mostly listened to all of them except for one, which I read in physical format, and that's pretty much how things have been going. And I'm pretty pleased with that. Although, I always feel like I could listen to more books, but then again, I actually don't think I have the time. And then sometimes you can't listen, or sometimes you just don't want to. Um, I am still itching to read more physical books, but I don't think that's going to happen for a while. So we're going to stick to this format, I guess. I read 7 books. The first of those was Legion, The Many Lives of Stephen Leeds by Brandon Sanderson. So this is a bind-up of 3 novellas. Called Legion, which is the first one. Then we have Legion Skin Deep, and the last one is Lies of the Beholder. And in these stories, we follow Stephen Leeds, who is a private detective, and he's very smart. He's really good. He knows a lot of things, and that's mostly due to his aspects. So he has these aspects that he sees as physical manifestations, even though that nobody else can see them. And all these different aspects are well versed in different subjects. So one is a psychologist, one is a criminal investigator, one is a historian, and such. So we meet a few of them, although there are many, but we only meet a few of them, and they help him explore different cases, and we follow him throughout the stories. I really am I really liked the idea behind everything. I enjoyed the stories. They were very intriguing, and it's a lot of fun to follow Stephen and his aspects, because they're very his aspects are very different people, I guess, and they have different characters, and there's a joy to read about. Some are more serious, some are more comical, I guess, and that's how usually books work anyways, at least with Brandon Sanderson. So I really enjoyed it. As obviously it's I love his writing. It was not my favorite of his books, but then again, I pretty much enjoy mostly his, well, I love all of his books, but not as much as his epic fantasy books. So this one was a solid 3 stars, and I did enjoy myself reading it or listening to it. So I would definitely recommend it. But again, it doesn't have anything to do with the Cosmere. So if you do not want to invest your time in anything besides the Cosmere, then you can just forget about it, or just pick it up for fun, because the separate novellas are obviously short and quick listens or quick reads, however you want to actually consume this book. Next, I read a middle grade book, and that is The Secret of Deeswood, which is book 1 in the Deeswood Chronicles by Alan Alexander. So this is a middle grade, as I already mentioned, and it takes place in this remote boarding school that is set inside of a castle in the middle of a mountain and forest and everything. And it's basically for gifted children. This Lord Diswood established this school, and he left it after he died. He left it, and people are now going to school there, and we follow this girl, or actually her and her friends, the friends that she makes there, as they explore a mystery of a hidden treasure. So this is there's no magic here, just mystery, I guess. And they follow different clues and get in a bit of trouble and are in danger sometimes, and eventually they potentially find a treasure. You'll have to read the book to find that out. I actually quite enjoy this book. It's I think it's a bit long. I mean, I'm not well read in middle grade, aside from Morgan Crow, Nevermore, and Harry Potter. I don't know any other series, basically. Well, Percy Jackson, I guess, but it's been a while since I read a lot of middle grade anyways. And this is like 400 pages. I'm not sure if that's long for middle grade or not. Sometimes I have to say that, obviously I'm not the target audience, but sometimes, I don't know, I just didn't think that this book is meant for middle grade children, because, I don't know. I mean, I'm not English, or I'm not American, so I don't know when a kid would learn certain words or know them. I guess that also depends on the kid. But I just, sometimes this felt like an adult book, or at least a young adult book. Even the kids sometimes talked in a way that just didn't feel like a middle grader would, use certain words and things like that. So that's my one complaint. The other one is that there's a lot of, telling instead of showing. I think that it could be edited slightly better, and definitely there are definitely parts that could be edited out. And this book could be a bit shorter, but despite that, I actually enjoyed it pretty much, and I will continue on with the sequel, which is called The Missing Immortals, and I actually have an arc of it, so I should get to it soon. But yeah, so I did enjoy it, not my favorite, but still very enjoyable. So the next three books that I listened to were all part of a trilogy, and that is the Truly Devious trilogy by Maureen Johnson. So the last book in the series just came out, and I wanted to re-listen to the first two books, so in order for me to prepare myself for the third one, and I did that, and I enjoyed the series immensely. It's a very fun series to read or listen to. I would recommend listening because, well, obviously I haven't read it physically, so I don't know how the book feels like if you're reading it, but listening to it was a lot of fun. So Truly Devious is a story about Stevie, who was just accepted to this elite private boarding school. Yes, again, a book about private elite boarding schools. And this one is sort of infamous because the owners, when the school was first established, the owner was very rich, and at one point his wife and daughter were kidnapped, and the case was never solved. So Stevie is actually accepted to the school because of this, because she wants to explore it, and she's very eager to find out who did it. And she's also very well read about the subject. So that's basically why she gets accepted. And obviously we follow her as she tries to do this. But along the lines, there's other crimes that happen throughout the series, and she also has to figure out if there's a connection and how these two things are connected. We also follow, it's a dual timeline story, so we also get to see scenes from the past, when actually the first case was happening, the first kidnapping and all that was happening. So it's a really enjoyable book. The only really downside for me was all the political elements, political commentary about, the current situation in the US. I understand that people are very frustrated with it, but there's just so much that you can take as a reader in a book, because we also get that in the media all the time. We're bombarded with the frustration and all that, but when I'm reading a book, I do not want to be bombarded with that as well. So that's my one complaint. And Stevie was an enjoyable character. She was single-minded, I would say, and she sometimes just went basically over people that were around her. She ignored that she was not nice to them necessarily. So yeah, that's she's a flawed character. So yeah, but all in all, a really enjoyable series. I gave all of the books 3 stars, which is pretty good for me, because 5 stars is basically a rating that I never give. 4 stars is really good, but 3 stars is also good. So, I really enjoyed myself reading those books. The next book that I listened to was The Unhandy Mooners by Christina Lawrence. So I've heard nothing but good things about this book. It's a romance novel with comedic elements, and I just needed something light, so I decided to pick that one up. So in this book, we follow a sister of the bride and the groom's brother as well, and they do not get along, but for various reasons, they have to go and take their siblings' honeymoon for them. And since they do not get along, they're not entirely happy about that, but they do want to take a break, each for their own reasons. So they decide to actually go and just enjoy themselves, but separately. But then again, things happen and they have to pretend that they're actually married. So that changes everything for them. And obviously they start enjoying themselves. I don't think that's a spoiler because it's a romance novel. If you have read any of them, you will know how these things go. So yeah, I actually enjoyed this book quite a lot. I had a good laugh here and there. I enjoyed the writing, it was good. The characters were fairly well funny, and they have these quirks that just make them a lot of fun to read about. There were some aspects, the brother, the one that takes the honeymoon, is very protective of his younger brother, which is logical, but that's he's sometimes also blind by what he does and things like that. So I find that's actually pretty realistic. I didn't like it, but I found it pretty realistic. So yeah, all in all, it was a good book. I also gave it 3 stars because I guess that's what kind of month it was. And yeah, that's actually not the last book that I read. There's one more, and that is Scythe by Neil Schusterman. So this was another re-listen for me because I have listened to it a few years back when it came out, and I then didn't continue on with the series because I decided that I want to actually wait for the series to be done because that's the best way for me to consume young adult trilogies these days. You know, so my interest just doesn't wane while I'm waiting for the next book. So this is a book about a world that's sort of a utopian. Everything is perfect, there's no crime, people are not dying, everything is perfect. But obviously, since they're still multiplying, I guess, not the nicest word, but still, they have to somehow control the population number. And in order to do that, they established this scythe organization. And obviously, scythes are people that are sort of taught how to glean people, as they call it. So basically, they kill people. But yeah, and we follow these two characters that are chosen to be apprentices to one of the sites, and they're not necessarily very pleased about that at first. But as they get to follow the site, they learn that it's actually a very compassionate job in a way, and that it takes a lot to be one, and a good one. And obviously that's not all that happens, because if that was the case, then the story would be over in the first book. But things happen to their mentor, and they are separated and sort of pitted against each other. So they have to figure out who they are, what suits them. They have to grow up quite a bit, and I just really enjoyed this first book. I have not continued on with it with the series yet, so I'll do that in March. But yeah, I really like the characters. The two apprentices come from very different backgrounds, and they have also their own baggage, and that does affect how they view the gleaning and all that. And also the new mentors that they get are very different, and that also affects them, and yeah, changes them as well. So yeah, I've really liked this was like my first Neil Schusterman book that I read. Well, it's still the only one that I read, and I've really enjoyed it. I've previously heard good things about him and his writing, so I was really intrigued, and I'm really happy that I picked that one up years back, and also that I reread it now, because I obviously will continue on with the series. It's a really enjoyable one, and people really like it, and I can obviously see why, because I did as well. But yeah, that's basically it for this month, and I'm looking forward to March. January was like long, February was really short, and not just because of the amount of days, it just felt like it went by really quickly. And we'll see what March gives us. And yeah, until next time, I hope you had a good time watching this video, and see you then. Bye.